New England shocked the world by not just beating Cincinnati, but by suffocating the Bengals' offense with man coverage. I can see a similar thing happening with Seattle because New England has great matchups with Christian Gonzalez being the big, physical player for Metcalf, and Jonathan Jones being the smaller, shiftier player for Tyler Lockett. Marcus Jones should also be able to contain Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. With all that said, I still think Seattle should win though. Under Mike McDonald, the ultra-talented Seahawks defense should be unleashed against a very lackluster New England offense, and I have far more faith in Geno Smith than I do Jacoby Brissett to make difficult plays. Jacksonville in Cleveland is a rather difficult game for me to call, as I can see a world where Myles Garrett basically single-handedly breaks the Jacksonville offense, especially with Anton Harrison having struggled as mightily as he has in his short career to this point. On the other hand, though, Deshaun Watson will likely be the best defender for the Jaguars. I lean Jacksonville, as Lawrence is so much better than Watson, and I like the receivers for the Jaguars to get open quickly enough to mitigate the quick pressure of Cleveland. If you want to be slightly aggressive, I can see Jacksonville on the alternate spread of -2.5. New York was very lackluster against a buzzsaw 49ers, but Tennessee is a much lesser team than San Francisco. I think the Jets can do similar things to the Titans offense that the Bears did, as Will Levis is a low-end quarterback this far into his career, and his offensive line is a mess too. The Jets stand a chance to win matchups with Garrett Wilson taking on L'Jarius Sneed, and they should be able to run the ball with some proficiency as the Titans had a middling run defense last year, and the Jets have a good offensive line and a great running back in Breece Hall. Unsurprisingly, I'm taking San Francisco over Minnesota in Minnesota. The Vikings have a confusing defense that caused trouble for Purdy last year, but I trust Brock, his weapons, and Kyle Shanahan to figure things out, and San Francisco overall has an overwhelming talent advantage at quarterback and defense compared to the Vikings. I think Minnesota will struggle to run the ball against a stout San Francisco run defense, which will put too much pressure on Sam Darnold to perform. So even if Justin Jefferson is going to be a thorn in the side of San Francisco, I think that the 49ers should still be able to win this, and I like San Francisco -5. In a likely NFC Championship game preview, I predict the Giants to beat the Commanders. If you couldn't tell, this game is actually between two garbage teams, and I merely think New York is a little bit less bad. Dexter Lawrence might be the best defensive tackle in the league, and he goes against an average to below average Washington offensive line. I can see Lawrence himself blowing up the run game for the Commanders and providing enough pressure to make Jaden Daniels uncomfortable in the pocket. I like the Giants' weapons slightly more than Washington's, and I also think Daniel Jones should be able to be kept clean, as he has two bookend tackles that can neutralize the Commanders' poor edge rushing duo. After the Panthers' showing against New Orleans, there's basically no spread that I'd turn down for the Chargers. I think -5.5 is totally reasonable, especially with likely Carolina's best player Derek Brown being out for the game, which is important in general, especially with LA wanting to run the ball a lot. Bryce Young doesn't look like an NFL caliber starting quarterback, and he's going against a top 5 or 10 quarterback in Justin Herbert. I like the Chargers to win, and win large. The Packers and Colts could be a good game because Indianapolis doesn't have very good cornerbacks, and Green Bay has great receivers. With that said, though, Indianapolis -2.5 is a good bet in my opinion because, not to overly simplify, but Malik Willis is an NFL starting caliber quarterback, and Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor pose a great threat to a run defense in Green Bay that can be had. The Packers should likewise have success rushing because the Colts don't have a great run defense, but I think Willis is so limited as a passer, Indianapolis should be able to sell out to stop the run and have success still. Detroit should have the advantage in both trenches, as their offensive line is perhaps the best in the league, which should slightly favorably compare to Tampa's stout run defense and provide a big advantage against their poor pass rush. Moreover, Detroit should pose problems against Tampa's offensive line, especially with Luke Goedeke being out. The Buccaneers stand a chance because Chris Godwin should outplay Amik Robertson in a major way. That won't be enough though, as I think Detroit will be able to pressure Baker and get him off his game while keeping Goff clean. Admittedly, I struggle to see how New Orleans can win against Dallas. Not only do the Cowboys have the far better quarterback, they're also at home and have the better team as a whole. Tyler Guyton may struggle against Chase Young, but not as much as the Saints tackles will against Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Additionally, Alontae Taylor had a good week 1 against Carolina, but who doesn't? And he struggled a bit throughout his career and will have the very difficult matchup of going against CeeDee Lamb, which should be another major advantage for Dallas. Vegas stands more of a chance than some people are alluding to, as Baltimore's offensive line looks like a weakness, and the Raiders have an elite defensive line. With that said though, I like Baltimore to win convincingly, as Lamar is a top 5 quarterback, and Minshew is a bottom 10 one in the league. Baltimore's defense is elite as well, which will make things difficult on Minshew, as he won't be able to blindly throw to Devontae Adams like he would like to. Arizona and Los Angeles is the closest game of the week, as it's a 1-point spread. Reasonably then, this game could go either way, as Stafford has been the better quarterback as of lately, and his connection with Cooper Kupp is special. The Cardinals also arguably have the worst defense in the league, but I like Arizona as they're the healthier team, with Los Angeles having their wide receiver 1 Puka Nacua hurt, as well as 2 of their offensive linemen and their cornerback 1 Darius Williams, who would be valuable to defend the Cardinals' very good receiving options. I like the Steelers to win and cover their minus 2.5 point spread against Denver, because though the Broncos have a solid offensive line, if you want to contain TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, you're going to need an elite offensive line and a quarterback that can get rid of the ball quickly. Bo Nix is not that, as he took an average of 3 seconds to get rid of the ball in week 1, which was 8th slowest in the league. Look for Pittsburgh to sell out to stop the run and short passing of Denver, and the Steelers offensively to run the ball down Denver's throat early and often, because the Broncos have a rather weak run defense. Kansas City and Cincinnati is a fantastic matchup, if for nothing else than the Bengals talking a bunch of trash before the game, making for a more interesting matchup. The Bengals have one of the best quarterbacks in Joe Burrow, and he can go blow for blow with Mahomes at times. And additionally, Jamar Chase is arguably the best receiving option in this game. But I like Kansas City to win because Mahomes has been far better as of late than Burrow has been, and Chase will be the only reliable option for the Bengals. Chicago and Houston is a battle of 2 of the most highly touted young quarterbacks in the league, but CJ Stroud is a much surer thing at this current point than Caleb Williams is, as Caleb struggled mightily in week 1, whereas Stroud hasn't really struggled much at all in his career to this point. For that reason alone, I like the Texans, but moreover, Houston is the healthier team as Keenan Allen and Roma Odunze are questionable to play. Those things together make me feel confident in the Texans to cover minus 6.5 spread. Atlanta was majorly disappointing in week 1 against Pittsburgh, especially Kirk Cousins. They have a ton of talent on their team on both sides of the ball though, so they can bounce back. I just don't think they will against Philly at home. Jalen Hurts didn't have a perfect game week 1, but he showed a lot more than Cousins did, and I like his supporting cast and defense a bit more than the Falcons. Philly has a terrifying defensive line and several talented cornerbacks, whereas Atlanta mainly just has A.J. Terrell, who can't cover A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith at the same time. Those are my thoughts. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comments section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more content.